right? That people with disabilities bring a different perspective into a company, and oftentimes a perspective of, we're going to kick down the barriers, right? And that helps build your diversity program. One last piece, one of my favorite stories that I tell a lot is actually about building brand loyalty. Okay, in the town where we used to live very close to, in West Lafayette, Indiana, there's a Toys R Us, right? And the manager from the Toys R Us, I got to know a little bit through other contacts. And one day he told me the story about Tim and Tom. Tim and Tom were two young individuals who would come into his store every Tuesday and Thursday at 5 o'clock. And Tim and Tom did not speak. But what Tim and Tom would do is go up to a staff member and shake a picture in front of the staff member of a toy. And he said, he used to say how every time initially when his staff would see Tim and Tom coming in the store, they'd all of a sudden have something else to do, right? They'd all start running the other way because they didn't understand. Until the manager intervened and said, and one day went up to the mom and said, how can we best, I see you in here a lot, how can we best help you? She explained, my two sons have autism, they're nonverbal, they choose to come in here every Tuesday and Thursday, spend their $10 of reinforcement money at your store, and what I would like your staff to do is, they will have a picture of the toy that they want. If your staff would just take them to the aisle where that toy is, we'd really appreciate it. Right? And the manager said, let me do you one better. We'll do that, but let's invite you into my next staff meeting. You talk about your sons and what they need, and then give us 15 minutes on autism. Right? And now he tells me, Tim and Tom are customers for life. Right? Brand loyalty. As long as we do well by Tim and Tom, they come in every Tuesday and Thursday and spend their $10. Right? And what he said is, you should see the number of kids with autism now we have in this store. Because we opened our doors and we try to understand and we do regular education. Brand loyalty, okay, that's the opportunity from a labor and from a customer standpoint. The thing that I'm really excited about in terms of Turning Point and what we are doing in partnership with Walgreens and OfficeMax is beginning to build what we call the pre-training. And that pre-training concept is teaching the skills of the job off-site at the Turning Point site, and as we grow hopefully at other sites, where we can let people with more significant disabilities learn the jobs at their own pace. We teach them the soft skills, we look at the hard skills, and we want to teach skills to fluency. My partner Chris here, who's big in that behavioral piece, talking about giving people opportunity to learn skills to fluency. We are creating that pre-training model, and Walgreens used that concept initially in the Anderson facility, looking at some of that possible opportunities for pre-training as an accommodation to people who maybe needed to take a little extra time. Oh, in our concept, right, we're training for real jobs. We have the partners who are doing the teaching. We have OfficeMax, Walgreens, and other companies going to be committed to doing the pre-training so that there is an end game to what the person is learning. And maybe it takes 2 weeks for an individual, maybe it takes a couple years for a person to learn all the skills fluently, but trying to build that opportunity, and Turning Point is taking the lead to do that along with OfficeMax and Walgreens. So why do this pre-training? Well, first of all, this pre-training effort can potentially address those large skill gaps. I think that what we're seeing with a lot of companies are saying, yes, now we want to recruit people with disabilities, but it's not often because of the person's skills, but it's often because of the opportunities the person has, that maybe there's a little gap between their actual skills and what we need for a person to step in. So the pre-training is going to overarch that and bridge that gap. There's opportunity for regular assessment. When you're assessing somebody off-site, you get to know, is this a job they truly want, right? Are they showing up every day to the pre-training program? If they are, that's a pretty good indicator. They're going to show up every day to OfficeMax, to Walgreens, or to whatever site, whatever company that they're going to be targeting, right? We can look at the person's work attitude in the pre-training. We can look at their behavior. We can bring job-ready candidates over. And most importantly, we're creating that opportunity for people with more significant barriers, right? Because our community, as we start to talk about the disability revolution, right, in our world, Deb Russell's here, and a lot of folks from our world, sometimes we call it, right, you vote rehab folks, sometimes we call it creamy, right? The word is creamy, where we look at those top-tier candidates that have a disability and refer those on, but we sometimes forget about the person who could make a great employee, but just needs that extra time, that extra support to kind of develop those skills fluently. That's what Turning Point is doing. That's what Turning Point is reaching out. No more creamy, right? Being able to give opportunity, because our community contains people with a variety of skills, as you all know, right? And a variety of barriers. We're going to enhance those skills and look at that. And that's why I'm so excited about that pre-training model. And lastly, getting involved in a pre-training program is a pretty good way to meet your affirmative action. Because if your auditor comes in, you can send them over to look at your pre-training program, right? It's probably a pretty good way to demonstrate your positive outreach. So, in conclusion, I think that the most important thing is, yes, companies are coming into the fold more and more to recruit people with disabilities. I honestly think that the autism community has been a driver behind some of the visibility of companies recruiting. Temple Grandin is one of, how many people have seen the movie Temple Grandin, right? Temple Grandin is one of, for my money, the number one thought leader in the disability community right now because of the perspective she gives. The autism community is at the lead of this new disability revolution. So as we look to 2012, as we look to 2013, I ask the companies in the room to reach out, not just to reach out to Turning Point. Yes, hopefully you will reach out to Turning Point, but to reach out to the collaborators, to your partners with OfficeMax, Walgreens. Hear from them what they've done. Listen to them from what they've done. We have a wonderful project with Direct Employers Association that represents a lot of companies who are looking at that mentoring and taking companies. But I ask you to reach out because it goes beyond compliance, right? We are going to need to comply in the coming years. But what's going to happen is this, for the first time ever in the next few years, we are going to have the first drop impact in the unemployment rate of people with disabilities. And it's because of that awareness, and it's because of the creativity, not necessarily of the public side, but it's because of the private side. All right? And we have those leaders here today, and that's my challenge back to you is, yes, we will meet the compliance, but going way beyond that and beginning to look at the overall value of recruiting from this community. So thank you. I really appreciate the opportunity to be here to present, and I look forward to hearing Randy. So I'm going to get off and let you introduce Randy Barker. Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much, James. One more round of applause for James, please. I hope that we don't do an essential job function analysis for what I do for Pricewaterhouse. It might not be deemed essential. But in any event, thank you very much. I told you guys hopefully you'll learn something. I picked up some stuff I didn't even know existed, so hopefully you picked something up there. This next individual I'm honored to introduce. I'm not sure I'm worthy to introduce, but I'm honored to introduce. Randy, you don't know how many lives you've changed, and I'm one of them, okay? About 2.5 years ago, an individual, a neighbor of mine, and probably my best friend, does business with Walgreens. And those of you know me know that I talk a lot, sometimes to your detriment. And I was chewing his ear off about Turning Point, and he said, "You got to look up this guy, Randy. You got to look it up." So I went onto YouTube and I found this awesome video. And you didn't know it, and we didn't meet until today, but that day changed my life. That day changed my life. And it made me commit that I'm going to figure out a way, with 100 of your help, and hopefully 1,000 of you I haven't met yet, to help other people change, okay? And I thought I was alone in that, but I don't think I am, because you all have a DVD on your desk, and I don't want you to use it, throw it on in your office. I want you to use it to educate others in your corporation and your agency. There are awesome videos out there. I looked at the Senate hearing one, and I thought I was alone, but the individual there started off by saying, "Mr. Lewis, I watched this video last night, and I learned something, and you changed my life." You changed the senators. That's pretty cool. So anyway, with further ado, please do use that DVD constructively. I welcome Randy Lewis. He's been on NBC, CNBC, ABC, Senate hearings. He's the Senior Vice President of Logistics. Thank you for being here. We're honored, Mr. Randy Lewis.
Good morning. Can we turn the lights up a little bit? Because my slides aren't that good. It would be very helpful if we could turn it. Is that better? Oh, yeah, now I can see you a lot better. Well, what I'm going to talk about this morning is a little bit about our story. Each of us have a different story. And we started really probably 6 years ago, but started coming into fruition about 4 years. And we found ourselves on this journey. And where we thought we were going, it's kind of curved off to one or two sides, and it's really surprised us for the good. And essentially has changed the way we look at our workforce and the way we do business. So that's what I'm going to tell you about today. So this is we opened our first building. 6 years ago, we started planning a new generation of distribution centers. We built about 10 distribution centers over the last 10 years. We were going to open this one 4 years ago, started planning it 6 years ago. We said, we're going to do something different. We always use a lot of automation in our distribution centers, a lot of technology. And we just finished 4 of them, and they were fantastic, and they had new technology, but we had about a 2-year break. We said, okay, let's do something different for this one. Instead of making the automation more interesting for typically able people, let's go ahead and use it to enable a group of people who have never worked before, people with disabilities. And we were talking at the time, and James and I had talked before, we were doing planning. James worked with Walgreens. And I remember the conversation with James, because we didn't have that much money. And he's really cheap. That's how we take our consultants out. 3 cents on the dollar is all we must. So I asked James, I went to James, I said, James, if we had some people with autism, because that's a disability we both were aware of. If for every person with autism, how many typically able people would I need working side by side to give that mutual support? And James says, I don't know, 2. Great. Okay, so 1 out of 3 people will have a disability. That was our study. The board was very pleased when they didn't ask me. They didn't ask me where I got that study. I just said we didn't have this study. So we're going to open up this building. We're going to have 1 out of 3 people with a disability. We're going to hire 600 people. 200 of those people would have a disability. And we found this community, and we went out to a lot of communities and said, okay, will you help us do this? We have to find a good partner there. But a lot of communities said, 200 people. I don't think so. But we found a community that believed in us, and we said, oh, by the way, when we start out, we're going to hire a bunch of people, and they need to be ready. So this is the first 175 hires in our Anderson Distribution Center. It has about 500 today. This first 175, you'll find somebody that looks like you. We got different sizes, shapes, colors, ages. They all can do the job. But a third of these folks have some sort of disability, like autism, explosive anger disorder. I learned more initials in this last 4 years. Traumatic brain injury, multiple seizures a day, different kind of physical disabilities, sight impairment, hearing impairment, on it's a long list. They all can do the job as well as anybody in the world. Now, when we thought about this distribution center, we said it's going to be about automation. The automation and all the things we built in would enable this group of people to work. Well, once we did it, we decided that it was not about the automation. It was about the decision to do it. So, our first inclination, we had a different building. Now remember, this was new technology, new automation, new systems, new management, new workforce. That is a recipe for a really smooth start.